You shouldn't have done that. He was a good man. Protect me from Maximilian.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Pod Stallions. I am Brian, and with me, as always, to the left is Jason.
Hello, everybody.
And we are joined this week by David Weiner, who is the former editor of Famous Monsters magazine, I think the last editor of Famous Monsters magazine, and the current host of It Came From, Retro Ramblings from a Man Living in the Past. You can find that at itcamefromblog.com. David Weiner.
Hello, everybody.
David.
I'm so happy to be back.
And we are talking about a much demanded episode. I mean, this possibly is one of our most demanded episodes, and that is talking about the Walt Disney production of the film The Black Hole, which to me is something I hold in high regard as Star Wars as a kid. I know that's probably sacrilegious to some, but I think David holds it in the same regard, and I think Jason is very understanding.
It's a movie that is trashed often. It is definitely just not very held in very high regard. But I think it's a different dynamic, and we'll obviously dive into this. But it's a different dynamic for those of us who were there first run when it first came to theaters. And, it's 1979. It's 2 years after Star Wars. And here comes Disney, the tried and true brand of Disney, with their first PG movie ever, doing pretty much their version of Star Wars, at least in terms of what we were expecting. And so I remember, we'll dive into it, but sitting in that theater expecting their version of Star Wars, looking at amazing posters and amazing trailers, and it just was not quite what I expected it to be.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, it's not. It's actually, when I look at it as an adult, I go, this is a very weird film to show to children, because it lineates from very light and pop culture-y to extremely dark at the same time. And you were David. You saw it first run.
Oh yeah, I saw it in first run in the theater. When I was a kid growing up in New York, just outside New York City. And I could tell you that my first impression of it was, when's the movie going to start? Because...
it has a heck of a long monologue.
It's got a very long overture where you're staring at a field of stars. And you got 5 minutes of no movie and just John Barry's overture. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, I guess, this gives everyone time to, get to their seats and get settled and stop crinkling their popcorn. How long is this going to go on?
It also prepares us for Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Exactly. A similar experience watching the overture as just sitting through Star Trek.
Well, you do look back on it now, and I mean, I kind of recall the overture at the beginning as a kid, but again, it was this period where everything remotely science fiction that came out between 77, 78, and like 82. We had to run and see, because it was going to be somehow in the universe of Star Wars, or in the pocket, sort of. And I think I saw like a cardboard standee or something in a lobby that I first knew what this thing was. I saw it, I think 3 or 4 times at the theater.
Oh, wow.
But it was, it was like, I recall as a kid almost kind of convincing myself in an inner monologue that it was really good. What I mean is, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that I knew as a kid something felt off about this movie. Like, you're right. It is 1 second you're seeing strings on a hovering robot and like absolute slapstick antics, and the next you've got something horrible happening to Anthony Perkins' chest.
Yeah.
It really you look back on it now and get the sense that Disney, not only were they trying to stake their claim in that world of Star Wars, like we can do this too, but they were trying to make an adult, serious kind of sci-fi thing, and which Star Wars was. I think most people look back on it, looked at it at the time as a popcorn thing, but there's heaviness in that first Star Wars film too. There's scary stuff.
I would
for
actually
kids.
go. I would go as far as to say is that as Lucas went on with Star Wars, he made it sillier.
Right.
Like every little brushstroke he did, let's have a Jawa falling off. Like he was going more towards that silliness as Star Wars kind of, he kept rebranding it. Whereas with the Black Hole, there's I as much as I love it, and I really do have like a childhood obsession with it, there's some weird tonal shifts in that movie that don't make sense at all.
I think
and maybe that's why I like it. I like a lot of movies that scared me as a kid, like Beneath the Planet of the Apes and Omega Man. And I think Black Hole made its mark with me because it kind of scared me a little bit.
Well, and it's not except for the bit toward the end of the rescue and the sweeping sort of heroic music that comes in. It's not a fun romp. It is not escapism. Like there's a sense of dread, I think, throughout that entire thing. That you just don't know what they were sort of aiming for. And I think when you read more about the background of the film, you realize that there were people being pulled in all kinds of directions as to what this thing was going to be. Much like motion picture, that was there were 6 different people wanted it to be 6 different things and whatever. But there was merchandise, and there were coloring books, and there were trading cards, and there was the album.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing we really got to talk about a little bit is, before Planet of the Apes, there were no movie, great movie merchandising experiences. Like, we were all kind of new to that.
Right.
So, Star Wars comes out, and there was a ton of Star Wars merchandise. And then every science fiction epic after that, except for, Battle Beyond the Stars and Message from Space, there was just a slew of action figures.
Flash Gordon.
It was everywhere.
Flash Gordon didn't
I'm very sorry to mention Flash Gordon.
I can't believe you didn't mention Flash Gordon. How could you not?
Didn't recently finally get a line?
27 years to make merchandise.
Yeah, some obscure company gave them an action figure recently. But we really did get pummeled, and we were new to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'd see Logan's Run and get nothing.
Well, but don't you feel like we were, by the time we got to Black Hole, we had already been conditioned that everything was going to get something. You know what I mean? It would have been weird. That's why it was so weird.
I think it was like number 2, really.
Number 2 in terms of what?
In terms of merchandising blitz.
Well, I think Jaws was really big. I think we always kind of forget about Jaws, but
Jaws 2 was really big.
Jaws 1 was really big. Not the blitz that was Star Wars, but Jaws 1 had a shit ton of merchandise.
Jaws 2 got a mountain of merchandise.
Yes, Jaws 2.
Jaws 1,
did
you're right. There were rubber sharks. But Jaws 2 had the Marvel Comics adaptation and coloring books. And I guess sort of the point, so did King Kong. And, but the Black Hole, the reason, and this is my story with it, I got sick. I got really sick at the time the Black Hole came out. I guess it was in January of the release of the film. And I think I was home for 2 weeks. And what my parents did was they went to the store and they bought me this bag of Black Hole merchandise, like Whitman.
Oh yeah, the Whitman bag, the clear bag. Yeah.
Yeah, and it had a comic book adaptation. It had a storybook. It had a pop-up book that you could make stuff with. So this was, other than watching Laverne and Shirley and Love Boat on my parents' black and white television, this was my only media at the time.
Right.
And I must have read that. I never saw the film first run.
Oh, no
But
kidding.
I must have read that comic book adaptation. Yeah, I tried to get my dad to take me.
Well, did you have the book and record that they had, the 33
I did. Oh no, I had the 33 that cleverly cuts out the swear.
It cleverly cuts out the swear in pretty much everyone's death.
Yeah.
34-page read-along book and record. But
I just remember Robert Forster. Yeah. Robert Forster says, "We've got to get the hell out," and the record actually says, "We've got to get the hell out." And it's like, what does he say there? Why does that sound weird? I still have that record. I got everything because I think it was like sympathy. You know, he's stuck at home with pneumonia, and I became obsessed with the film.
So you never saw it. So you didn't actually see it when it was in the theater.
No.
Oh wow!
No, I did.
Okay.
When it got re-released, there was a local review cinema in my town, called the Brock Theater, and they played it with a double feature of Lady and the Tramp.
Oh, okay.
And I got excited and I went and saw that. And then about a month or two later, my grade school played it in the gymnasium with Lady and the Tramps. Or no, they played it with Swiss Family Robinson.
Two live-action Disney epics.
Two live-action Disney.
And I had to sit through movies I had no... I actually did enjoy the Swiss Family Robinson film.
So wait a second, David. So David, how old were you when it came out?
I was 11 years old.
You were 11. Okay, yeah. So you went in with the same notion that our lives were Star Wars at that point, and were you expecting? By the time it was done, did you think it was like a Star Wars adventure, like that kind of vibe?
Well, no, that's the thing. I thought back on my merchandising habits when it came to Disney's Black Hole, and I had absolutely nothing. The only thing that I had that had the black hole on it was my 1980 January Starlog with the black hole on the cover.
That's right.
Disney's $20 million epic, which I resorted to reviewing before our conversation today because I thought there might be some interesting nuggets, and I do have some nuggets. But I had nothing, and I thought to myself, why didn't I have anything? Because I remember the action figures. I remember looking at them, and I remember thinking to myself, other than maybe Vincent or Maximilian, I had no desire to have any of this stuff. I didn't want to own any of this stuff. I was happy to just have more Star Wars. And perhaps if they had like a Cygnus, die-cast model, a miniature, that
I think the Cygnus is one of the coolest spaceships.
Absolutely.
Ever.
That would really appeal to me if I had that, because I've always wanted that, and they've never made that.
The design in the film, the ships, the sets, it really is pretty spectacular. I mean, again, it's weird, and you're kind of shocked that some of this darkness, this is what they thought was going to make, $300 million or something. The score by John Barry, who was, of course, famous for a ton of scores, but mainly the Bond scores from the 60s and 70s. And it's got a very Bond-esque sort of feel to it. It's very sweeping and, the overture is amazing.
Thought, though. Just to finish my thought, why I didn't get this merchandising, though. Sorry to sort of bring it back, though. I think what happened was I sat in that theater expecting Star Wars, and it derailed during the course of the viewing, where I stepped out of the theater thinking, okay, well, I've seen it. That wasn't that spectacular. All right, moving on to the next. I didn't want to run around and be these characters. I didn't want to run around and be in this situation. And I think because of that, I looked at the merchandising and I thought, well, they look like the Buck Rogers, same exact style of figures as Star Trek Motion Picture and Buck Rogers. I just looked at these and I just thought, I don't really need to own these things. Going back to the Cygnus, it's really, the Nautilus is sort of like a giant floating haunted house, but it's also, there's a whole giant, especially because it's Disney, there's this 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea allegory, where this movie is really 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in space, where Dr. Hans Reinhardt is Nemo, the Cygnus is the Nautilus, outer space is the ocean depths and the unknown. And I think that the reason why Disney did this film was because it was kind of in their wheelhouse of what they understood in terms of the mystery of outer space, and that's I think where the disconnect was also with sort of a swashbuckling Star Wars style adventure, is because I think they tried to insert those elements when they saw the success of Star Wars, but it really just wasn't part of what they were doing from the get-go, because this whole project goes back to 1974 in terms of development.
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
I didn't know that.
It does feel like something that would have come from a different... It felt like Disney was behind the times. Like with something like Star Wars with, Battlestar Galactica on ABC or whatever it was, even the Buck Rogers, like by that time, that stuff had kind of hit. Star Trek hadn't, I don't think, hit at that point because it was like Christmas of '79. But all of this stuff started to hit, and I think we did sort of become used to merchandising blitzes at that point, because everything, even the Flash Gordon animated series got a toy line. Like everything that sort of we were into was on the shelves all of a sudden. And I don't know if I got stuff first or after I saw the film. I only got a few of the figures. I think I got Maximilian, and I got Vincent, and I got one of the Sentries. And I remember vividly being really pissed off because the Sentry, the little figure came with 2 pistols, and it had like those Micronaut hands. And he couldn't hold the pistols, and they weren't the same ones as in the movie.
Oh,
and I think I think there were 2 little holes for holsters, but the gun didn't fit in the holster or something. And
yeah, it does, but it's like an amazing break. And first of all, that gun, where did that gun come from?
I don't know. Where did it come from?
It is not any gun from the movie itself. The guns from the movie are cool and amazing, and I don't know. It's just this weird...
You'll notice also, Jason, you didn't buy any of the humans. You didn't care.
You just what?
You didn't buy any of the human characters. You were just
because
you were just
I was kind of turned
robots.
off by. I mean, like even Mattel did the Flash Gordon range. So even when they made and they did Battlestar Galactica, but they didn't do pupils on the Battlestar Galactica figures. They did pupils on the Flash Gordon and the Ming, the human type figures from the animated Flash Gordon series. But they didn't do pupils on the Battlestar ones for some reason. That always kind of creeped me out. And then
it's a little
it seemed to be the same thing with the black hole ones. And am I wrong? Maybe the Star Trek ones did have pupils. I don't remember.
No,
but
none of them did.
The black hole ones were just that sort of...
None of them did. They were just really well sculpted. That's the weird thing.
And they didn't come with any guns. They also didn't come...
No, I know. Well, Disney had a weird thing, apparently, about guns. Yeah. But even though, like... The Sentries did. They had some sort of weird gun thing, but Mego didn't seem to throw guns in with.
Yeah, there's no guns with the Star Trek ones. There's no weapons with the.
Well, except for the 12-inch Star Trek, they all have lasers.
and the same thing with the Buck Rogers.
The Buck Rogers are the worst ripoff because they have guns. You just can't take them out of the holster.
Freaking holster. Yeah.
Yeah, and like when you look at the Buck Rogers figures or the Black Hole, they sculpt-wise kick ass over everything Kenner
they're
ever
amazing.
did.
They're amazing.
Bill Lemon.
Yeah.
But they just didn't do the little, they didn't dot the I's.
So, Princess Ardala ends up being a creepy mannequin-type woman in that figure line. I did have, we'll get back to the
and a giant peg warmer.
The movie, the one thing that I had that I was kind of obsessed with, and I ended up tracking down a few years ago, like on eBay or something. Whitman made a sort of, I think, again, I was either sick or it was a holiday thing or something, but it was like a rainy day little box that came with a punch out and make it book, a coloring book, a sticker book, the little golden.
I think I had that exact same thing.
And then it also
sick,
came with punch out Vincent and Maximilian, big ones. So all the other books I think were available on their own, but the punch out Vincent and Maximilian that you could hang from like a mobile or something, those were specific to this box. And man, I just obsessed over the stuff in this box. It came with a poster. You could put stickers on the poster, and it was really, really cool. Like, they just don't make stuff like that anymore. And so I tracked it down a few years ago, and I have that stuck away somewhere. But but yeah, there was just something about this thing that just, I mean, nothing really. The only thing that sort of turned me on the way Star Wars did, in a remote way, was Battlestar Galactica. Like when that was on, every Sunday or whatever it was, I thought it was almost like watching Star Wars every week. Like, oh yeah, I got all the toys and everything. But
see, I don't actually share that with you guys, so I find that fascinating.
But Buck Rogers and the Black Hole and some of these other, and like Star Trek, like it just movie after movie, even though we went to see them multiple times, was not even in the ballpark remotely of Star Wars and the feeling you got when you left Star Wars. And the Black Hole is one of those things. I think it's just the backstory. I think is more fascinating than the movie itself, like how this thing even sort of came to be. And the further away you get, the more it's like, I don't know. Like I was 8 or 9 when I saw that. I'm not sure that's the kind of thing you'd take an 8-year-old to today, because it's pretty bleak. I'm not saying the violence. I'm just saying that it's not fun. You know what I mean? For an 8 or 9-year-old kid.
Well, it's the tone. The tone. I think a lot of it has to do with John Barry's score as well. Mm-hmm. It's a very moody, haunting score, and it's a great score. But there's sort of this hero theme that is disconnected with the action that goes on and doesn't quite fit. But on the flip side, the rest of the sort of atmospheric theme that goes throughout the when they're exploring the ship and they're kind of doing the spaceship porn of look at this amazing model, let's explore every inch of it before we actually get back to the story again. It's such a haunting mood and atmosphere due to that. Although I have to say also, rewatching it again, because it's so signature John Barry, there are times where I feel like I'm watching a Bond film. You see this giant massive villain's lair, like a giant Ken Adams set.
Adams set, yeah.
Reinhardt is in his red Blofeld suit.
That's
right.
The other thing we should really talk about.
They've got the people movers and stuff like that, and you're just listening to this Bond music. Like Bond has got to thwart them before the nuclear missile is launched. It feels like
and
that.
He does, and Maximilian Schell does have the vibe of a Bond villain.
Well, yeah, so and that's the other thing I wanted to talk about was the cast. You have a cast that, by and large, it's like Irwin Allen. They just stole Irwin Allen's cast for a movie. You have Robert Forster, I think one of the world's most underrated actors.
Mm-hmm.
But
he totally is. But
you'd never go. I'd put that guy in a space movie because he's so Rochester.
That was. I have a theory about that. I have a theory about how that sort of came to be, and I could be wrong, but people forget that when Superman hit, to see Terrence Stamp's name in the credits of a film was like, holy shit, what?
Well, because he'd been hiding in India.
Right. He was like, I was living on a commune or something. But it was the first thing he sort of did when he came back to life. But in the 60s, he really was sort of the James Dean of the British. I mean, he was this beautiful face, and he was kind of a face of mod culture, and he was, he worked with Fellini and all kinds of, cool directors and stuff in the 60s, and then he disappears. So Forster was like this guy that starts out in the late 60s being this kind of heartthrob and things and medium cool hits, and he's kind of known. And by the time you get to Black Hole, he's really been sort of, I think he was doing like exploitation type stuff. I don't think he was doing much mainstream stuff. But he was definitely a name that you would have recognized, like, oh, whatever happened to that guy? So it's really interesting that he...
Well, he did Avalanche with Rock Hudson the year before. So that
was 78?
Yeah, I think it's 78. And that's true exploitation. You're absolutely right.
I do remember when I first saw Ernest Borgnine on the screen, though, all I could think of was disaster movie.
Right.
At that time, that's what he's associated with Poseidon.
Well, yeah, and
totally.
He'd done a film called The Neptune Factor. Have you guys ever seen this?
No, I haven't.
Neptune Factor?
I actually think there's somebody else in that film from the Black Hole. And what it is, I think it's Canadian made, so it played on Canadian television a million times. Yeah, it's Ernest Borgnine and Yvette Mimieux. and Ben Gazzara and Walter Pidgeon, and they are trapped under the sea with giant fish. But the giant fish are just magnified regular fish. And I knew that I knew somebody else from the Black Hole was in it. Anyways, it's a Canadian production because it played on television here 100,000 times. But it's trash. But yeah, that's how I knew who Ernest Borgnine was those kind of films.
But she was also kind of a face. I mean, she was someone that had been around.
Machine.
Mm-hmm.
Right. She was, again, one of those faces you go, oh, where's she been? Like, she was in everything back in the late 50s, mid-60s, or whatever it was. So there was a bit of that. And then, of course, Borgnine was, he was a name, and he was in those kinds of films. Perkins, I suppose, there was more recognition for the stuff he'd done in the past or whatever. But my brain could never figure out, as a kid, I really had a hard time with a robot being called Maximilian and the actor playing the bad guy being called Maximilian Schell.
That confused you.
I just thought of, that must have been chaos on set. Like, how did they tell them apart? And
I think people were confused by the casting of Anthony Perkins. People see Tony Perkins at that time, and they just think he's going to, freak out with a knife.
Yeah, and his performance in the film does not make you not think that's going to happen.
Right.
He's creepy in that film. Like, you like him, but you're also like, what's wrong with that dude? He
gets a little.
Yeah.
He gets a little.
And then there's sort of the Luke character, the Forgotten Bottom.
The bottom.
The bottom, the lower rung bottom. Well, I think he was a bottom as well. But anyway, Joseph Bottoms? Is that who it was?
Joseph Bottoms, yeah.
So he's got two older brothers, right?
He's got three. He's got three
brothers.
Yeah, all Bottoms.
So he was the guy that finally said, "Yeah, I'll go to the audition with you," and he got a couple of gigs, and then he ended up getting the Black Hole. And then you had Roddy McDowell.
Well, he was also, I think, going back though
to
Joseph Bottoms.
In that?
He was.
Yeah, he's uncredited, but Joseph Bottoms was known for some Holocaust drama. So
yes, no, it was called Holocaust. Yes, but that was that before the Black Hole?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was.
I saw that on television.
Yeah, it was like a big miniseries, like back in the days.
Oh my God!
And so
forth. No, I know Joseph Bottoms because he also hosted an hour-long special on Disney, I believe.
Special effects, yeah.
Special effects. He's Major Effects.
Yes.
You remember that? I think it's still on YouTube.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was basically a really clever shill for the Black Hole.
Yes,
he was talking about special effects, and he was Major Effects.
I just don't remember seeing him ever in anything else after the Black Hole. Like, he just...
Well, you know what? That's because you had eyes and watched television. He really didn't do... Like, he had a fairly long run. I think he's retired about 16, 17 years from acting.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, like, he ended up on Canadian television, believe it or not, on a show called Street Legal, which I actually... used to be filmed not too far from where I lived. And he was on an episode of, like, The Highwayman, and I remember seeing him just in spits and spots, but, yeah, his career did not take off, so to speak.
No. And then you had the other name, I suppose, would have been Slim Pickens, who did the voice of Old Bob, which even as a kid didn't make any sense to me.
He was uncredited.
Why the robot was all beat up. Old Bob. Why would you make a beat-up robot?
I didn't understand any of this.
He explains it, though. He explains it in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he does explain it.
The Star Sentry did things to him that he doesn't want to talk about.
Well, I didn't understand Old Bob until I showed it to my future wife when we were like 25 years old in my dorm room, and she cried at Old Bob's death. Oh, and I realized, oh my God, Old Bob is Bambi's mother. Like it's that Disney death. I never got that as a kid, as a boy, right? But she was like, oh my God, that movie makes me cry. And it's like, wow. Oh my God, like they threw that typical Disney schmaltz in there of, Bambi's mother, or help me out, I don't really watch a lot of Disney films.
Bambi's mother.
Every parent that dies, buys or disappears.
Yeah, even Italian guy, Lady and the Tramp.
Yeah.
In Frozen, they get swallowed by a wave and you never see them again.
That sort of deal. Yeah.
Have you ever seen? Have you seen in recent years? Like, have you ever seen the trailer for the Black Hole?
Yes. Isn't it
the actual original trailer?
Your pal Ross? No, it's not. It's not Roscoe Lee Brown. It's the other guy. What's his name? He's got that.
Oh, the guy that did
voice.
Phantasm.
Brock Peters.
He's back.
I don't know.
The guy who did the trailer for Jaws.
Yes.
He did Phantasm. He's got he was in Star Trek. He was in one of the classic episodes. He had with that robot that floated around the ship, tried taking over the ship.
Yeah, Nomad. Yeah.
Yeah, he was Nomad's pal.
So he did the narration in the trailer. With the trailer, which is like a high-tech trailer with the computer graphics going around,
but it is
the green grid for the Black Hole.
It's an insane trailer because it gives so much of the movie away. Like
Percy
the whole
Rodriguez
movie,
is his name, by the way.
Yes, that's who it is.
Yeah.
The whole movie is in this trailer. I mean the sequence where like Robert Forster goes to rescue Yvette.
Yeah.
Kate, the whole sequence is played out in this trailer.
Yeah.
The fight with the robot and then like almost getting lasered and getting her out of there and carrying her to her safety, like it's all in this trailer. It's crazy. Like even the marketing, you just didn't know what they were sort of going for, you know?
Going back to the casting, when I remember hearing Roddy McDowall's voice as Vincent, and I remember that was one of the things I really loved about the film because I was such a huge fan of Planet of the Apes, and obviously his other work, and so leading up to that, it was a familiar voice and in sort of an unfamiliar world that they were building, and so I could kind of
just felt natural. It felt
connect
like
with
we were so used to hearing him and seeing him in things that it made sense when you heard that voice come out of that character. You're like, oh, that's Roddy McDowall. Of course he'd be in something like this.
And he's also,
he was such a genre veteran even then, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, at that point, he'd done what's the show you love so much, Brian? Fantastic Journey or Amazing Journey or whatever.
Fantastic Journey. He'd also done Martian. Oh no, maybe he hadn't done Martian Chronicles yet.
Martian Chronicles, I think, was the year after. But yeah,
but he ended up doing so many of those. Like if it was a sci-fi show, he usually appeared in it. Yeah.
Right.
It was also very confident.
He was in an episode of Buck Rogers, wasn't he? Like a two-parter or something.
Everybody was in Buck Rogers.
Everybody was in Buck Rogers. That's true.
He was in line behind Buster Crabbe at the commissary, and he said,
right.
But that character was a very, very confident character, and I connected with that as well because Vincent was, he had all these wonderful little platitudes that he would sort of spit out and little sayings, and then it didn't matter how, he would come face to face with Maximilian and he'd just say, the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah.
And he was great because you never doubted that character, so he was a great sidekick.
Now the design of Vincent, as everybody knows that the design of Vincent is Mickey Mouse's logo upside down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had read that or heard that somewhere once. The Maximilian design is pretty fantastic. I mean, they clearly wanted like a Darth Vader type character or villain or something. Mm-hmm. The design is great. I mean, and the thing that turned me on the most were the guns, were the pistols. To me, that was the coolest thing to come out of the movie. Were the
Except
double
it didn't
barrel
come out of the movie.
Pistols.
We still don't have any of those.
But you posted something once that somebody made a prototype in a catalog, right?
Yeah, Marx UK was going to issue it. Now, from what I've read, and of course I'm a bit of a Mego nut.
Right.
The people at Mego, first of all, they never paid the bill for the license because the movie just bombed merchandise-wise. And I have some theories about that personally, but the other thing was they said no guns, and Mego did some odd things, like they made 12-inch action figures of all the human characters, which nobody wanted. I remember as a kid looking at those, going, okay,
yeah, it's the same character in like a different spacesuit and no weapons.
They're really nicely done action, and I own them now.
Yeah, if you want to have a dinner party play set, they're the figures you want to have in your little mansion, but not for like a space adventure.
No, and the other thing was there was no, like, clearly the most merchandisable characters were Vincent, Bob, and Maximilian.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
or the
Bob,
sentries. Those sentries were on a lot of stuff.
But Bob wasn't part of the first assortment, and you poor suckers never even got him. We got him in Canada. When I was a kid in Canada, 1981, my folks took me to Kmart before we were going furniture shopping or something like that, and I came across this whole wall of $1 black hole figures.
Oh, wow.
And there was Humanoid, Old Bob, Star, Harry Booth.
We didn't even know the Humanoid existed until I saw it in a sci-fi collectibles book in like 1990.
Yeah. So I got all of them because it was.
And then Italy got those. Talk about diecast. Italy got those awesome diecast figures.
And the reason they got them, and the reason Canada got them, is I actually spoke to the former, the head guy of Grand Toys, and he said, "Well," I said, "How come we got the Humanoid and Mego didn't make it in the U.S.?" And he said, "Well, we had to pay up front. We had to pay with a letter of credit." So Mego could just cancel the line. We knew we were screwed, but we had already paid in advance for the merchandise. So it went to Kmart for $1.
I love that little Humanoid figure. I would have grabbed that because that's one of my favorite bits in the movie. That's actually very unsettling for kids.
It's a chilling scene in the film. Yeah,
yeah. You realize the whole ship is zombies. He's.
I think in the Gold Key adaptation, you don't see what he sees.
And then
instead of Maximilian killing him, Reinhardt just steps up with a laser gun and shoots him. Do you remember that? Like I remember.
No, I don't remember
that's not what. Because in the record you hear the whole. But in the Gold Key adaptation, which weirdly, I just want to bring this up, the Gold Key adaptation clearly didn't have the likeness, or they weren't cast yet for Anthony Perkins and Ernest Borgnine, because Borgnine's character doesn't have a mustache, and Perkins' character has a mustache and glasses.
That's true.
I don't know if you guys.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it's really weird, and I remember thinking it was weird as a kid. Like that's not how they looked.
I remember thinking it weird as a kid that Borgnine wouldn't have made the weight limitation on the
well, he's weightless
on the Pegasus or whatever it was called.
I weirdly bought a Harry Booth figure as a kid.
Oh, really?
You did?
Well, because it was $1, but
you got me. You hooked me up a few years ago. Yeah. I wanted a Robert Forster and a Borgnine action, the 3 3/4 inch. You got me those too.
Yeah,
because I never had those, as a kid. But so the gun, so who was going to make the gun? And because you got to put that, when you put this episode up, you got to put that image up.
I will. Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is the coolest prototype that never surfaced.
It's by Marks.
Who made it?
Marks UK had the rights to Mego's stuff in the UK, and they also seem to be going forward with a gun. And they had a couple of other little things that Mego wasn't doing, so I don't know if they were going on their own or what. There's some neat stuff in the UK.
Mego was going to make a what's it called?
Palomino.
Palomino.
They were going to make a Palomino. They were also going to make a Vacuform Cygnus playset that, like of all the things that I've seen in toy catalogs, that's one of the things I really wish existed.
I could smell that right now. I could just smell Vacuform. I would love.
Yeah.
Well, it
would have been chintzy with stickers.
Would it have been like?
In fact, I think there were
bridge,
3 different versions,
like the motion picture bridge, kind of like that sort of thing.
Well, the first time they showed it, it was a like a play case, and then in the second catalog, it's the styrene set. I think they went as far as to make a television commercial for the Palomino, and I still believe the Palomino exists somewhere. There was a lot of R&D done on the toys. In fact, I know that they did a remote-controlled Vincent. It was going to be very expensive. There's one that exists, but I do know that I talked to somebody at Mego who said, we took all the prototypes and took them to a dumpster and smashed them. But there is one prototype Vincent. There is one magnetic Old Bob out there. I personally own the Old Bob Vincent prototypes from Mego.
Oh, no
but
kidding.
There's another set that are 2-ups that I think Jordan Hembrow owned and sold recently of Vincent and Max.
Wait, so who made the die cast? Or there was a die cast Maximilian, a Sentry, and a Vincent, right?
Those are made by a company called GIG.
Gig,
they were a Mego subsidiary, like they were Mego
in Italy, right?
From Italy, yeah. And
GIG
was doing really, really well with the Micronauts, like better than Mego was in terms of success. And they made different versions of the Micronauts. In fact, I once spoke to a man at Mego named Bill Barron, and there were Mego GIG made characters called the Emperor and Green Baron, and Bill Barron basically said, I drew those. Like, they just wanted more characters. And I was like, here, I'll draw them for you. Because that whole magnetic or figure line really took off in Italy. So
and these
even
were,
when Mego...
These weren't like 12-inch, right? They were like 6-inch?
No, they were like the Force Commander and Baron Karza from the Micronauts line. And even when Mego went under... the GIG made a line called Il Fantinati, which is like kind of quasi He-Man, and it's the exact same thing. They're the magnetic kind of figures, and of course, GIG made magnetic superheroes, which never took off in the U.S.
But those Black Hole, those three, Maximilian, the Vincent, and the Sentry, those have to be three of the rarest Black Hole collectibles, right? If not the rarest, right?
Well, I would say the rarest is a carded humanoid. The second rarest is the Walking Vincent from the UK. I think Mark's released that, and that Walking Vincent is actually for the 12-inch figures. So,
wow!
And that's
so it would have been like the Tweaky. Didn't they make a 12, like a walking Tweaky?
They did. Yes, they did. Yeah,
but so it would have been like that.
But Buck Rogers, believe it or not, Buck Rogers was a huge hit for Mego. And so
I could see that because the packaging was better. The Black Hole packaging was the logo of the movie on a black background.
It did
in purple on every box, on every package, and then photos. The Buck Rogers thing was like, artwork off the poster of the characters, and I could see that stuff doing better. Looked a little sexier.
The other thing that Mego did with Buck Rogers that I think really helped it was that they released, the Starfighter, the Dracodian Marauder,
right?
These they had this whole line approach to it,
right?
I mean,
But that was the problem with Black Hole is that the ships were not very good. They pretty much had two ships.
That's right.
The Cygnus was awesome, and the Palomino was terrible. The Palomino looked like a tin can straight out of Salvation One.
What? A lot of people say that to me. They say, the Palomino looks older than the Cygnus.
It does,
and I can't, I do love the designs of the ships, but you're right. I always kind of assume, not that I really, it keeps me up at night, that the Palomino may be actually just an old ship.
Well, it's just the gist is, though, if they, again, it's like you that's what's so amazing about, like, the Marvel movies. I keep going on about the Marvel movies, but, like, when you think about all the boxes that have to be ticked, when you're just trying to get something, the first Iron Man or whatever it is, like, you got Happy Meals to deal with, you got toys, you got people that know the characters, people that don't know the characters. You're trying to educate, you're trying to make the comic book people happy, et cetera, et cetera. So when they keep getting it right the way they are, and, like, design, practical design that lends itself to a toy or lends itself to, like, the ships that came out for Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever. All that stuff is so well thought out. I mean, some of it is very crass where you can see the vehicle and go, well, this was specifically designed to be a toy and, whatever. But it's very smart to plan that stuff out. And, you look at Black Hole and you go, there's not like dogfights. There's not like cool, sexy ships floating around in this sci-fi movie. It's like a can of tuna.
There's no X-wings.
Right.
Yeah. So there wasn't any, even if they had made like they made some model kits, but if they had made like sort of, Hot Wheels type, I don't know if anybody would have cared because it just was, it was just a big flow. It's like if you only made the Star Destroyer from from Star Wars. That was the only ship. It's just not that exciting.
Agreed. And then Mego even made in Italy only. They took the Buck Rogers. Actually, I think it may have been the Black Hole laser scope fighter. Have you seen this?
Mm-hmm. Is that the one with the claws? It's got the claws on it.
No, it's basically what it is. It's very low. You were thinking of the Micronaut vehicle called the Star Searcher that Mego was running out of ideas, and they said, "Well, we'll slap Buck Rogers' name on Micronaut."
Put a sticker on there. Yeah.
And it really is. It's embarrassing. But the laser scope fighter was kind of a neat idea for the time. I mean, the technology isn't there, but it comes with a Dan Holland action figure.
Oh, really?
You're just supposed to it's only Italy, only GIG did it. Mego didn't do it. They only released it for Buck Rogers here. And I get the feeling that the Black Hole may have been kind of a bigger hit in Italy. Just because GIG seemed to do a heck of a lot more with it than Mego did.
Well, Italians can be moody. So
they can like their style. Well, you know what? Italians are also huge fans of Jerry Anderson's UFO. So
see,
I won't.
Can't bag on us for that one.
Going to the fact that they didn't make any guns for those action figures. What you could do is you could just appropriate a Guardians of the Galaxy Starlord gun.
Right. Well, did we all not notice that? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just take
that. Was that in the comic book before the Black Hole movie, though, or was it something that happened after?
No, Star-Lord had a real defined pistol, as I recall. Because I've only ever bought one Star-Lord comic, and it was because there was a Tom Baker Doctor Who comic in the back of it.
Of course.
Yeah,
but it is. It totally is the Black Hole gun. We had to wait that long to get that gun, but that is a super cool design. That pistol. I remember just being obsessed with that in the movie and just thinking, any day now I'm going to get to a toy store and there's going to be, a toy gun of this thing, because it was the coolest. The notion of two lasers coming out, of the gun was so cool to me. That to me was the hit of the movie. I also
really like the special effect of they've animated the laser blast, and I always really liked that. It looks so unique to the film itself, and I've always been kind of a fan of that. Especially some of the fights they have where it looks like it has more impact. I don't know how to put it there.
I remember the set piece that I always think of with the film is that fireball rolling down
the meteor shout that comes out of nowhere.
Right. But they're trying to get across that bridge, and it's coming at that. To me is the standout sort of sequence in the movie, because it looks like all the money was put into that sequence.
Oh, it's like it was the resistance. I think the one thing that they were very confident about were their effects, and I'm not talking about the people hanging on wires. I'm definitely talking about these massive sets, these incredibly intricate models like the Cygnus, and then you have, although narratively it literally just comes out of nowhere. Dr. Reinhardt. All of a sudden, right after Anthony Perkins, I'm bouncing around narratively, but it's sort of out of nowhere. They're like, you know what? We need to throw in a giant hailstorm of fire. Why don't we do that right about now? And then all of a sudden it just comes in and trashes the ship. And there's no warning. It comes out of nowhere. And you have this sequence that, of course, predates Raiders of the Lost Ark, but you have a giant rolling ball heading towards them, which I wouldn't be surprised if Lucas and Spielberg saw that and said, maybe we could put something like that in our movie somehow.
I mean, the thing is, when you really
kind of throw science out the window.
When you really, though, when you step back, I mean, I'm not trying to bag on this film because I love it in many ways, and it was a big movie for me as a kid to a degree. But when you step back and look at it and realize the most sort of enigmatic, most energetic, person in the entire cast is Ernest Borgnine.
Yeah.
You might be in trouble because, nothing against Robert Forster, but it was you go back and you watch that first Star Wars, and the only two actors in it that are in it 1,000% are Peter Cushing and Harrison Ford. They are believing every word they're saying. Everyone else is kind of, no offense to the performance of it, it's either kind of stilted or Alec Guinness looks like he's on stage or whatever, but you needed a Han Solo. That's why the Star Wars prequels they're so po-faced, because like all they're doing is talking about politics and there's no Han Solo in there to whoop it up. The Black Hole was like, everybody in it is pretty flatlined as performances. I mean, even Maximilian Schell is not like a great Bond villain. You know, he just... Actually,
I would say Maximilian Schell is batshit crazy.
He chews up the scenery.
Yeah, but he's just...
There's a point where after Maximilian kills Alec, he turns to Kate McRae and goes, "Protect me from Maximilian." Like, it's completely nuts, and it doesn't even deserve that depth, in my opinion. Like, I looked at that and like when I rewatched it recently, it was like, my God, that's deep for this character.
Yeah, he's got a couple moments of crazy, that's for sure. And but certainly, can we talk about the climax now of like WTF? What the flick? That climax.
Well, I thought that's how we'd end, but I don't.
No, we don't have to end.
Right
no,
before we dive in, though,
as long as we're talking about crazy and Maximilian Schell, what the hell is the ending about? And I'm assuming at this point, if you're listening, you've seen the film.
Yeah, if you haven't, stop.
Yeah, if you haven't seen the film,
watch the film.
There'll be spoilers ahead. Right.
Go watch the film and come back.
Go watch the film now, and we'll wait. But what's wrong with you? My personal feeling on it, and this is my personal feeling from when I was a kid, that's hell. Like, I was raised Catholic. So
there's no question about it.
Yeah, and that.
Yeah, I've been to hell. It's pretty.
He's
pretty similar.
He's being stuck in Maximilian for all the rest of eternity.
Oh, absolutely.
And
what do you mean he's stuck in Maximilian? What does that mean? He's stuck in Maximilian.
Because he's floating down with that weird space hair.
He climbs into it.
He just he climbs into Maximilian, and then he's and the thing I didn't get as a kid, and now I realize.
Is it a metaphor though, or is it really happening?
Yes. Well, I think it's.
If you watch in the beginning of the movie, they're very heavy-handed. As soon as they see the black hole, there are two references to hell. Dante's Inferno, and then Joseph Bottom.
We've all had the record, haven't we?
And Joseph Bottom says, "I half expect to see a man with pitchfork and horn standing there."
Yeah. I just remember being 9 years old, thinking, "Oh, I'm so glad they mentioned Dante's Inferno because that doesn't get mentioned in enough action movies for kids these days." Gee, I hope they're going to mention the Canterbury Tales at some point.
Yeah, but by the time he's standing and there's fire and brimstone all around, and I half expected to see like Bill Cosby in full regalia from Devil Next Devlin, hanging out with a pitchfork, and goat legs, because it couldn't have been clearer. And then
actually, Roddy McDowell is the devil to me, and all.
Of course. But yeah, I mean, they do that, and then
is it a metaphor? I mean, is he really? Was he on his way to actually finding hell? Like what would?
Well, if you watch the end of the film, and I have a million times, there's also an angel.
Yes.
What?
When the crew of
they go to heaven in a long. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, like a long hallway, a glass hallway into the light, with the guidance of an angel. A woman in a flowing white dress. Okay, now I'm just going to stop us there. Who at the studio thought this was a good idea? No one had been inside a black hole. They didn't know what it was like in there.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, this is 1979, or
we now have photographic proof of hell. So back in '79,
it's Disney. Disney needed to kind of keep it real, I guess. I don't know. It was getting a little theological, right?
Yes. Yep.
So, I guess that was kind of the scope of what they wanted to do. I mean, I always really kind of dug Reinhardt's demise and his going to hell, And I don't know if you guys know this, but because the comics are kind of rare, but
I was going to get to that. Before you get there, though, because I was just about to get to this.
Yeah.
So now that we're at that section of the film, so again, if you haven't seen it, I'm assuming you frickin' have if you're still listening. But the heroes make it through the black hole. They make it through beyond the other side, whatever. The bad guys apparently perish, whatever. So you walked out of the theater. It was completely open-ended for a sequel, correct?
Oh, yeah. Well,
kind of. I don't know what that would look like, but
I remember very specifically my
franchise.
I remember my friends very specifically at the very end because they get through and they're flying towards what looks like an eclipse. It's basically a white corona around a dark hole. And I remember my friend turned to me and he said, "That's the next movie. It's going to be called The White Hole." And that's what they go through next.
That's a very dirty film I've seen.
That's funny. That's pretty funny, actually.
You know what? That's the thing that drove me crazy was Whitman Gold Key released 2 issues of Beyond the Black Hole.
Yeah.
Here, and I remember seeing it in a poly bag, which means great. And the first issue had a dinosaur on the cover. I still have my copy, and it's kind of a rare comic.
So what goes on? What's the story, though? What goes on in the comic?
What the story is, and this is the part that I remember being, driving home from Kmart after buying it, being just mad. I was dinosaur mad and black hole mad, so I was excited. What happens is they end up in an alternate universe, and there's another Reinhardt, and there's another Maximilian. Maximilian can talk. And there's another old Bob, and they sneak away on a new spaceship that looks kind of like the Jupiter 2 with old Bob, and they're now being chased by this different Reinhardt who's from another planet for some reason. And I just remember going, "Really? This is the imagination."
Actually, you know what? I gotta say
I was like 10.
That is better than Alien Covenant. That notion of what the next black hole might have been. They spend $300 million on a movie with 17 writers and years of development, and you don't get something quite that good. So, I would have gone to see that if that was a second movie. I would have gone to see.
I just remember being vaguely disappointed with it, just thinking we're just back to having Maximilian, and I guess
you're saying it wasn't up to the fine quality of previous Whitman comics.
Whitman did some beautiful Flash Gordon movie comics.
The high watermark of the Whitman. Yes, they did. You're right.
I really like the Whitman Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers comics. I actually like Whitman comics.
The Flash Gordon comic is great because of what's his name? The artist who is escaping me at the moment. But he did Al Williamson. He did the Empire Strikes Back.
Oh,
adaptation.
Yeah.
It's mainly great because of his.
I was just so pleasantly surprised once buying one of those comics and realizing it was actually continuing the movie and being so excited.
Yeah,
because I there was nothing, and to get that one comic book that had just like the Sam Jones version, and it was pretty exciting when I was like. I think I got it when I was 12.
Now, you also...
Which would have been like...
You also got something in Canada that we didn't get for Black Hole, and you were nice enough to send me a couple of them, because David, do you recall there being giveaways, like serial giveaways for Black Hole? Do you? I remember there was stuff for Star Trek, I think, the movie. I think...
Are you talking about the prize in the box? You're talking about the...
Yeah, like anything. Yeah. Do you remember anything for Black Hole in a cereal box?
Anything like that.
Yeah, that was one of the things. I think I brought it up in earlier.
You brought it up, but for some reason I don't know what we were talking about.
This terrible cereal that still exists today called
Shreddies,
which I despise. In fact, I was at a grocery show. I do that for work, and I brought home some free boxes of Shreddies, and my kids wouldn't touch them. I ended up just tossing them,
scrubbing the sink with them.
But Shreddies used to get all the Disney licenses, so they would get, Lady and the Tramp stuff, Rescuers, you get little stickers you could put on your little plastic cups. And they got Black Hole because it was just kind of like a default. So the first round of stuff they got were these beautiful pencil holders that are Bob, Star, Maximilian, beautiful little plastic things.
Cool.
And as an added bonus, they would, if you sent 3 boxes of Shreddies and some money, and I just got the box recently, and it was a lot of money. You were paying full retail for these figures. You got the first 3 Mego figures. You got Bob, Sentry, and Max. And I remember doing that. I think this has a lot to do with my chemistry as an adult now, where I love sending away for things and getting them. And I would pay hundreds of dollars to get the envelope. The envelope that had Maximilian wearing his blades on there. And, you got the 3 figures. Now, after that, Shreddies did a second promotion with the signal flashers. Now, when there was no action figure, I didn't want to eat any more Shreddies.
What was the signal flasher?
So I didn't do it. The signal flasher is like this Morse code thing, a little screen. And it has like a picture of Bob.
Really?
And I have some of those. I actually have the box for that. My buddy at Collecting Candy, Jason Liebig, gave it to me. He just said, you can have this. And it was, he gave me a couple of the signal flashers, and it was like one of the nicest things somebody's ever given me. And I like it, and I love the history of it, but... I never went for those. And they actually did that for Tron, too. They did Tron signal flashers, and they may have done Tron little vehicles, too, Shreddies.
Brian, I have to say...
Really? They did Tron vehicles for Shreddies?
Maybe I'm wrong. I'd have to look it up. So, sorry,
Brian, I was just going to say I have you to thank that my son sleeps on Black Hole sheets. And they're awesome. Yeah. They're awesome.
I'm not sure how to take that story, but what's Brian got to do with?
I found those at a thrift shop.
Yeah, well, Brian's in our garage.
And it was the whole set. It was. By the way, Jason, they did Tron discs.
They did?
Frisbees. Yeah, and I found that whole set for $5 at a thrift store, and went, I have to take this home, and I washed it, and then I realized neither of my kids had a bed that size. And then I was like, what do we were moving. And I was like, what am I going to, I don't know, I love this, and it's awesome, and I used it, I think, as a tablecloth at a toy show once. And then I was like, and then you were mentioning your son loved Black Hole, and I'm like, well, this makes sense.
Awesome.
I just sent them to you. But I think I had a Black Hole pillowcase as a kid.
Were there? Let me ask you this. You're kind of the expert on, I think, Black Hole stuff. Were there ever Halloween costumes for Black Hole?
Yes.
There were?
Ben Cooper had that license. Yeah. There's Vincent for sure.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about this a million times. Where I managed to track down a Ming and a Hawkman Collegeville Halloween costumes in the box.
Well, what's killing me is there's a Collegeville Dragos from Jason of Star Command apparently out.
Right, you had that in a catalog, right? Though is that in a catalog?
Yeah, but I've never seen it.
No, I didn't. And, but the thing is, it's weird because it's like that one little pocket that you don't have proof of. I don't have images that I don't know what other characters exist. I think a Flash Gordon one exists because I've seen pictures of it. But anyway, so I don't think I've ever seen Black Hole ones. I didn't know that
I was dressed as Harry Booth for Halloween in 19. That was Dr. Kate McRae. I can't remember. I was one of the two.
And all the kids thought you were Marty.
One would be a wig. The other one would be a mustache and a pillow. Which one was?
Okay, so there were Halloween costumes. There was cereal stuff in Canada. There was a board game. I think was there a board game?
There was a Blitz. There was a board game. Mego was going to do an
electronic game. That's right. I've seen the pictures of that. I think
they were also going to do a Vertibird of the Palomino.
Of the Palomino.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Cygnus and Palomino.
Yeah, no, the Palomino. They were there. There was a ton. They did get a lot of stuff out there, but there was even more stuff proposed than it came out. Jack Kirby did a weekly Black Hole strip in Sunday papers. That's just stunning.
So wait, so would you say that Black Hole got the amount of merchandise on par with Buck Rogers? Did it get as much stuff? It didn't.
It was a healthy amount.
It didn't get Rack Toys, did it?
It was a good No, because that's Disney.
Oh.
And they didn't do a lot of rack toys. You know, the thing is that Disney had everything top loaded. So you had Whitman and, you know, doing the comic and doing everything like that. You know, Mego really wanted the black hole. And incidentally, they never paid the bill on the black hole. They traded off for the word Tron, which they owned, for Micronauts.
Oh.
And Disney just said, okay, instead of paying your guarantee, we'll just take the word Tron.
And they never wanted to do merchandise for Tron?
Well,
they were falling apart.
You know, I think at that time they were falling apart, and Disney probably was like, "Yeah, you guys don't pay your bills."
Oh yeah,
because you know, I think Tommy got that.
Disney they did a computer game. They did like this sort of a couple years later. It was like way too late after the fact, like in '83. They did a thing called Space Probe Math, and it was for the Radio Shack TRS-80 computer. But it involved the Palomino. And it was some sort of educational thing with a cassette with educational games on it. But no one seems to remember that one.
Do you remember that Radio Shack ripped off Vincent?
Did they have a remote control kind of thing? Or what did they have?
Yeah, it was a robot, and I'm just trying to find it now. Hopefully I can. But they did their own version of Vincent. That it's completely... I'm having trouble digging it out. I'll find it.
I remember them doing a thing that looked kind of like ROM, like a walking sort of ROM type dude, like inflatable top half.
I'm still waiting
for
the ROM Space Knight movie. When are we going to get that?
Good question.
We're never going to get that.
Probably not.
You're so determined.
But you know, speaking of, but hold on, it's funny you say that, because that does kind of bring it around, because for the longest time, the Black Hole had been rumored to get a remake, and the guy that was lined up to do it was Joseph Kosinski, who did Tron Legacy.
Right.
And there's even a Black Hole poster. There's a cameo of the poster at the beginning of Tron Legacy when young Jeff Bridges was talking to his kid. So they were kind of hinting that was going to be the next thing, and then it sort of fell apart. I happen to love Tron Legacy. I like Tron much more than I liked Black Hole, but even then I wasn't like, you know, I didn't want to dress up like Flynn for Halloween or anything. But I love the toys, you know, for Tron and all that stuff. But to me, they're kind of similar in that they're both Disney big budget things that Disney was hoping was going to change the face of, you know, sci-fi and big budget movies, and they poured a lot of effort.
And they both kind of just fell.
Yeah, they just didn't have
they didn't bomb.
Yeah. Like the visuals of Tron, I think. Whenever I would defend Tron Legacy, I'd always say, "Look, Tron was never cool. You know, we never came out of it thinking, wow, what a badass movie." The visuals were really cool. The design, and that's why so much of the design held up so well. To riff on it in a different way in the new movie, I thought was really smart. And actually, the animated series, the Tron after Legacy, I forget what it's called, but it's a really good, strange animated series. The animation's great. The design is great. You could see something like that. It only lasted one season, but you go, yeah, why wouldn't you go back into that universe as an animated thing? You know, Black Hole, maybe do you think there's something, do you think they could still remake this movie, or is that just nostalgia gone mad? Like, there's no reason to, it wasn't that sexy of an idea in the first place.
Well, you can blame John Carter of Mars. You can blame that for this not happening, at least for the time being, because
no, I don't know if I'd agree with that.
Well, they were going to do. Well, let me finish. They were going to do the next, you know, the follow-up Tron movie, and they pulled the plug on it after John Carter bombed at the box office, and they also had the Black Hole reboot in the works. I talked to Kosinski when I was at Entertainment Tonight, and I remember asking him about Tron, about the Tron sequel, and about Black Hole, and he was happy and excited to talk about both of them. But it all was sort of in development hell, and they remained there because of the fact that they didn't quite know what to do with John Carter when it came out and it bombed.
Well, they screwed it up as soon as they dropped the Mars thing because of the other stupid movie that came out and didn't make any money. And they said, "Oh, we
Mission
can't have it.
Mars or anything
can't mention Mars. You know, moms need Mars. We can't mention Mars because that'll, you know."
Exactly.
The marketing was terrible. John Carter's a great movie. It's like, you know, we should be lucky to get stuff half as smart as the way that was done and the detail that was taken with that. I think it's going to be like a Rocketeer in years to come, where people are going to look back on it. You know, Disney can't get a live. They tried it with Black Hole. They tried it with The Rocketeer. They tried it with Tron. John Carter. They should just leave that stuff to other people. I mean, you know, Pirates of the Caribbean, whatever, that's a ride, you know, whatever. But these really groundbreaking things, I just think they should stick to the Pixar stuff now, which isn't even Pixar anymore because they've, you know, Disney's come in and just made sequels. There's no originality anymore with any of that stuff. But they never seem to be able to get a Star Wars type thing. Well, now they have it. But you know what I mean? Like that vibe they've been searching for so long. They never seem to be able to do it with other properties. And, you know, Carter actually did well around the world. It didn't, you know, break records in the U.S., but it actually did very well around the world. And I had just read something like a month ago that said Jared Leto was talking about doing this next Tron, like they were going to reboot, and he's attached or something. You know, I don't know. But I mean, do you think Tron, you could kind of see, that there was a world that was sort of created here, and with today's technology, you could see where this could go, how you could update it. Is the Black Hole the kind of thing that you think is worthy of getting a remake, or like going back to revisit that story? Do you think it's that compelling of a story to try to do it again?
For me, it's like remaking Space 1999. You're going to have to throw out everything that was kind of fun about it to make it good, and then
flares.
It's just going to become this thing that is almost unrecognizable, and you go, you know, first of all, anyone who grew up with it's going to go, I don't like it, and then, you know, I don't get it personally. Like there's too much baby being thrown out with the bathwater, personally, that I don't see how it can be remade. But
yeah, you get sort of stuck between, you know, you can't win because the remake people, if you want to do an absolute direct exact remake, everyone wants something new. But if you do something entirely new with elements of the original, all the original people who are familiar with the title, they'll get upset as well.
Yeah.
Kaczynski told me that he said he was calling it a reboot because the fundamental concept was there, but you know, we're quote unquote taking it in our own direction. So I would guess there would be a lot of similar design elements, maybe not the Palomino. But you know, the Cygnus is such a signature element of the Black Hole. You could keep that and keep the fact that it's around the Black Hole and design an entirely new movie around it, including what happens when you go through that black hole, or if they go through the black hole. And I think there's some potential there. I know Neil deGrasse Tyson would probably love to see a remake because he hates the black hole. He said it's like the worst movie ever because the physics are all wrong and it just makes no sense. And I suppose
nerd.
Well, yeah, like I mean that bothers Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know, I don't know a lick about, you know, the black hole other than what I've seen on this and then ironically Space 1999. So I don't know who's getting that upset about it, but I get what he's saying. But
yeah, well, I guess my point is that if you look at something like Tron and the notion of going into that world, the movie was kind of ahead of its time. Like, the terms like users and programs and all that shit that's now become part of the lexicon, and now that gaming, and so much of the internet and everything is such a huge part of our lives, you could see them updating something like that and go, oh yeah, look what's happened in the past 30 years or whatever. Flash Gordon is very tricky because it is a one-off. I always say one of the reasons I love it so much is that there is nothing quite like that movie, quite like Flash Gordon. The look of it, the feel of it, the design, the score. I don't know how you win if you want to. They've been rumored to, get a Flash Gordon thing going for over a decade now or more, and they can't seem to decide if they want to riff on what came before and kind of wink at the 1980 film, or just do a straight, brand new space adventure thing, or because you're but you could see them doing something, because you've got infinite possibilities with the creatures of Mongo and all those different
but there's
creatures and planets and things.
There's such a beautiful history with that.
Flash Gordon, I think you could do much more with it. Yeah.
It's a good thing that laid dormant for a while, because Stephen Sommers was attached to it for a while.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
That's right.
And he was at stages in his career where he was destroying things. So I think it's a good thing that he didn't ultimately get his hands on it completely.
Actually, the last one I heard was Matthew Vaughn. I had read after Sommers that Matthew Vaughn was going to take a crack at it, and that I would have been okay with.
Yeah,
I could see this guy showing some reverence for the characters and stuff, but the Black Hole to me is like, I don't know where the catch is there with the story or these characters too. I never quite understood why that was going to get remade. It seemed to me to just be.
They could expand the scope on it. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but you just if you enlarge the stakes and basically our universe is going to. It's like. Sunshine, the movie Sunshine. Our sun is dying, so we need to restart the sun. Well, our galaxy is going to be swallowed by a black hole if we don't do something. So they send out the Palomino to do something scientific to thwart this, and then suddenly there's a Cygnus at the edge of the black hole, and conflict ensues. You just sort of make that world a little larger and a little more less.
There better be, if they're going to do it, there better be monsters. There better be giant robots. There better be lasers. They better make those guns, because if it's just a bunch of people, then it's Deep Impact. It's not. The idea was they were trying to make another Star Wars. I mean, they clearly didn't.
No.
And I don't know if they thought they did. I don't know if they. I mean, you guys probably know more than I do about.
Star Wars is a recipe that nobody ever really seemed to make right.
Well, it was very much in there because they have all these laser fights where it's clearly the sentries are stormtroopers. It's clearly Vincent and Bob are R2-D2 and C-3PO, even though they look a little different, but they're kind of the same. And then, you have all these sort of these. They don't have dog fights, but they have these incessant laser fights, and you kind of have a big bad. And so they really tried. I think that they mixed the formula up quite a bit. I mean, this thing was supposed to be called, I think it was called Space Station 1 when it first started out, and then in 1974. And then it sort of mutated into this movie called Probe 1.
I would have seen that.
But the black hole wasn't even in the movie in their first pitch, their first draft. And then
ironically, the second and third titles. Well, never mind. I won't make it.
Probing the black hole.
Probing the black hole.
Would have been great pornos.
It was a double feature with Flesh Gordon. I remember seeing it.
Right. Do you know anything about or did you ever read anything about like in the old Starlogs you're talking about the results? Like 6 months later or a year later, was it rumored they were going to get a second one up and going? I know that I think if it's one of the same articles that you're talking about, because I think I have one of those Starlogs that talks about it, because there's an article in one of them that sort of previews the Flash Gordon film that's going to come out the next year, and so I have one of those issues. And I think there's an article about they're talking to people on the set, including Forster, and I seem to recall them talking about being signed up for like a string of movies, like 3 or 4 movies after this one if it works, that they were all kind of locked in or something. So did you ever hear anything about how far a sequel might have?
I remember watching a news report on Buffalo News where a woman was standing next to a moving statue of Vincent that was in a theater, saying the film was a disappointment, right then and there. So no.
Well, screw her. Who the hell was that?
I remember that because I was like a little kid, excited to find out if the film was doing well, and then she's like, "I'm here with my friend Vincent, and his movie's not succeeding." And I was like, "Oh,
his movie sucks."
Yeah,
it's funny in that.
But I don't.
In that Starlog, they have an interview with Joseph Bottoms, and he completely disses Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and And he's saying, I think Black Hole is going to have a really good following, and people are going to be able to get off on it because Star Trek's just not going to make it. You know, they've seen it all before on television, but Black Hole is.
Wow! Can you imagine that? There's your press kit. It's called Probe One, starring Joseph Bottoms, and he says people are going to get off on it. That's your marketing campaign, right there.
And it's a Disney.
I think they would have gotten a lot more people in the seats if they had gone with Probe One.
Well, Disney was trying to change their direction to be a little more. You know, they were they were fine with the fact that it was a PG movie, but and they were working on like Watcher in the Woods and Condor Man and Flight of Noah's Ark and stuff like that, and those were all
Condor Man
hits.
God.
But those were all intended to be for not like the kiddie kids, other than Herbie Goes Bananas. But
there was always something. But see, that's the thing, Condor Man. There was always something in it that was just a little off,
goofy,
that kids would not have responded to, like. A little too much sexiness in Condor Man, or who was that? Was that Barbara Carrera? Was that the chick in Condor Man, or something? I don't know. Like, just the Black Hole was like really dark.
Well, this Starlog interview, they have Joseph Bottoms, but they also have the Ron Miller, who was the executive vice president of Disney at the time, and he was talking about much of the article is him talking about how Disney got all this hate mail from the Bible Belt because they heard that the movie was going to be PG, and they all were saying,
wow.
We're going to see it, and we're going to boycott this because people shouldn't be saying the F-bomb in a Disney film. And he's like, you haven't even seen it, and it's not that bad, and don't worry about it. Just give it a chance. But they had to grapple with a lot of negativity simply because they wanted to try and appeal to a broader audience, and they did that on purpose because they knew that if it was a G-rated film, that they weren't going to be able to cover their budget. I mean, it was the biggest budget movie of.
Well, that was my next question: is why
20 million.
There's nothing. I mean, that was my next question: was why it had to be PG? Because there weren't. I mean, it was dark, but it wasn't like.
Because Robert Forster said hell.
Forster said hell, and
Dan
got his chest sawn off.
Yeah.
Well, that was.
And by the way, on the record, that is really gruesome.
Yeah, that's dark.
Yeah. Oh, I remember it, and you hear him making the with the gagging sound. That's incredibly violent. He puts a book in front of him, and the guy saws through his chest.
It's jarring. Absolutely.
Holy shit!
And then Harry Booth is this really sort of duplicitous character too, because he ditches his buddies while the entire Cygnus is falling apart. He ditches them to take the power, and fly away. I mean, that's awful.
It's such a Borgnine thing to do. It's such a Borgnine thing. He shows up.
Ernest Borgnine, I spat on him.
Yes.
He shows up, and you just know that he's going to rip you off or something, or try to pound your face in.
There's a really funny ad by Heroes World where they do the Amigo Black Hole figures, and I don't know if the guy who drew the ad knew the film's outcome or what, but he makes the Ernest Borgnine figure look really shifty. He's got like his eyes going back and forth.
It is pretty awesome. Isn't True Romance? Don't they make a joke about it? Where he's in True Romance, because Tarantino wrote the script, but like Christian Slater shows her the comic shop, at night or something, and I think there's a deleted scene or something where he jokes about how weird it was that there's an Ernest Borgnine action figure that exists.
That's
and how cool he thinks that is.
I've seen that scene.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think it's a deleted scene or something, and it's such a Tarantino thing to point out.
The funniest thing that happened to me in collecting Migos is I tracked down the guy who as a teenager worked at Migo, and he had taken these prototypes home to his girlfriend to give them to her as gifts. And there was like this sweet little thing, and of course they were still married, and he sold me the Vincent, the Bob, and the Twiki. He said you can buy these, but you cannot have. And he had the original wax sculpt to Ernest Borgnine, the Harry Booth 12-inch figure. And he said, that one's too personal. Because I guess they found it so funny, like he had brought her the head of Ernest Borgnine.
Right.
And he's like, no, you can't have that one. And I was totally fine with that. But I always thought it was kind of funny.
Was that Borgnine figure, was that the same body as every other Mego? 12-inch?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Or did they give him kind of a tummy or something?
I don't think they gave him a...
No, they didn't.
No.
They didn't give him a... They weren't that good.
No, I'm just saying.
They gave him a big sweater.
He's significantly... he wasn't like an obese man, but he was significantly a little bigger than...
Did you guys ever see the beautiful parody of 2010 they did on SCTV?
No.
And they weirdly
talked about this.
Borgnine, and it's Eugene Levy as Borgnine and Joe Flaherty as Art Garfunkel. And they're the leads. I always wondered if the Borgnine thing was because of the black hole. I'll never know, because he's such an unlikely lead for a science fiction film.
There's... Well, it definitely was...
I was going to say...
Well, it definitely was one of those weird cast lists that was like... And who was the director, by the way? Does anybody know the name of the director of this thing?
Gary...
Was he anybody that...
Gary Nelson.
Who was it?
Gary Nelson, best known for Freaky Friday... And lots of TV, like Kojak and Get Smart and the Ghost and Mrs. Muir, Gilligan's Island, Gomer Pyle.
So he's
Stuff.
got a real pedigree.
Basically, the pedigree for this movie is lots of TV. All the writers have huge TV credits. I mean,
he was available.
Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, if you look at who made this movie, it's a bunch of TV guys. The writers collectively. It's two guys came up with the pitch, Jeb Rosebrook and Richard Landau, and their collective credits are among many other shows: The Incredible Hulk, $6 Million Man. But Landau has like some noir and horror and sci-fi. But Bob Barbash, the guy who let's see. There were two pitching guys, and the screenwriters were two other guys as well.
And then Joseph Bottoms walked in.
Yeah, exactly. I'm getting a little punchy with the pitching and the catching.
And so they say, "Look, it's called Probe One. I know what you're thinking. Just hear it out."
But I mean,
what do you think?
All the TV credits, it's like everything from the Waltons to Barnaby Jones to Electra Woman and Dinah Girl. I kid you not. Little House on the Prairie.
No way.
McCloud, Starsky and Hutch. It's just...
Yeah, so I love it.
These are the people who made the black hole.
This massive budget, like this big live action thing that Disney's going to do to step into the world of Star Wars and kick off a franchise, and they get a bunch of journeyman writers and director that did television stuff. I mean, it feels television in some ways. It feels kind of like, when is this thing going to kickstart? I mean, a lot of stuff, we all have nostalgia for a lot of stuff from the 70s and early 80s, but you go back and watch some of this stuff, and it's just like the opening credits take 12 minutes. You're just going, are we going to get to the show at some point?
It's a bit stodgy. It's dialogue heavy. It's sort of leaden with the interactions. I think it was just you had the wrong team to try to be cutting edge. Like, I think that love it or hate it, what you had with Tron is you had them believing in a guy that had a vision for something, and it is not a perfect movie. It could have used a lot of punching up with the script and all that stuff, but you can't deny the visuals of it, that it was really groundbreaking, and they took a chance on this guy, and they were kind of right, whereas this thing was just like, who's available, who's free on Friday to go to a meeting. One element we haven't talked about is Dr. Kate McRae's ESP connection with Vincent.
Right.
Oh yeah, that just comes and goes, right?
And I remember it just they tossed that in early on, like it's going to be a major part of the film,
Yeah.
And then it just sort of goes away, and you're like, okay, well, so she has an ESP.
But it's used, I think, when she gets, if I'm not mistaken, it's used when she gets kidnapped by the
when she's about to be lobotomized, right?
Yeah, she's about to be turned into a humanoid. Yeah.
But what was the point of it? Was she some advanced type of human in the future or something that uses her brain in different ways, or was she just
It never really gets explained.
Little psychic. Yeah.
Well, they need a little conceit to be able to talk to Vincent when they lose touch with him outside. So, we can't talk to Vincent. Why don't you use your ESP and we'll be able to find out, oh, he's okay because she's spouting out one of his little sayings.
Right. Wait, you don't have the Force? Try ESP. I feel like it was a ripoff of the Force. Like they needed something to make it slightly mystical or something.
But I forgot all about that. Actually, it's
well, so did they when they wrote it. They
yeah
yeah. But it's true. I mean, we did have it pretty good for a while there, where everything not only did we run to see whatever it was because we were hoping it was going to be like Star Wars or something. We got a lot of merchandise for a lot of this stuff, and Black Hole there was a lot of stuff out there. I mean, there were toys, there were books, there were clearly like bed sheets and T-shirts and pajamas and Halloween costumes. They wanted this thing to be a franchise,
Absolutely,
yeah.
I mean, I wonder if they did ever drew up plans for a second film or how far it might have gotten. We may never know.
I've never really ever looked up. I've never really looked up anything for a Black Hole sequel. I've never thought that it was ever a doable thing or even considered. Other than the remake, which kind of came and went, I don't.
But did you? I mean, when I always talk about this. I've talked about it a million times now. But the ending of The Empire Strikes Back, I'm sure I was not alone. Especially in my feelings for Han Solo, that when those credits hit, I sat there going, "What the fuck? What the what?"
Right.
Like it just okay. I mean, it wasn't quite the same thing, but when the black hole ends, you're like, "Really? Like that's? Are we gonna?"
Well, they're in. They're onto another dimension, and if you actually look at their the 24-page read-along book and record. The captain says, well, we can't go back, but that's no reason to give up hope. We've trained to find new worlds. Let's go find one for ourselves.
Yeah, and their ship doesn't even have...
However, we are running out of food.
Doesn't look like it has a bathroom.
I'm going to have to eat one of you at some point on this journey.
So, and my friend said that's the next movie, The White Hole. So they're in another alternate universe, and I'll bet they did have designs for something to happen, and they were probably just literally waiting for all those Brinks trucks to back up to the front door of the Disney studio.
And they had Ken Berry on retainer to star in the sequel.
Right.
It was going to be Ken Berry. So it was going to be the Black Hole : F Troop.
White Shadow.
Right. They had Ken Berry, Brian Dennehy. Brian Dennehy was lined up for the Borgnine part, but I bet you, I'll bet it was going to be something like an alternate, like a mirror universe kind of thing. I'll bet that it was going to be something like that, and then they were going to have to kill themselves, kill their doppelgangers. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it's sort of like you look at Splinter of the Mind's Eye, where that's.
I've never read that.
It's a great read, and I don't. You know what? I haven't read it since I was a teen, but it was a great read at the time because it was the only thing you got before Empire came along.
I remember staring at that cover for just days. That paperback cover.
But the idea, in a nutshell, of me even bringing it up was the fact that Lucas was going to continue Star Wars whether it was a success or not, and he thought if it bombs, I'll make a small movie with this sort of like one planet location, and this is what happened. And Alan Dean Foster, here's what it's going to be about. Now you write it. Perhaps with the concept of the beyond the black hole, they already had sort of nuggets of information that they gave to to the comic book writers, where they kind of expected something to happen after the black hole, and when it wasn't happening, they kind of lobbed what was spitballed together for that story to the comic books. It's always a possibility.
Yeah, I see you. I mean, it's more Star Wars was so personal for Lucas, but this is so committee. I don't know if that ever, that's a passion project. So I bet you somebody had an inkling of a story of it.
Well, that's what. Sure. Well, I think about when you have a talking Maximilian and you have, a Hans Reinhardt doppelganger. That might have been where it started. I mean, if the whole movie literally goes to hell at the end and then a little bit of heaven that they slip through, I'm sure their ideas were completely off the wall and not very coherent in terms of what they were going to do next.
And
all those guys went back to TV afterwards too.
Right, working in the cafeteria.
They mostly did.
Yeah, working in the cafeteria at Disney. But no,
Well, wait a minute. I want to point out that the director actually directed Alan Quatermain and the Lost City of Gold.
Oh, well, shit. So things turned out okay for him after all.
And then he did Gwendolyn in the Land of Yik Yak. Oh wait, that was someone else.
That was someone else.
But it is the kind of thing that it's hard to. I understand when you hear these stories about Star Wars, when people were showing up on the set or when rough cuts were being assembled or whatever, that they just didn't see it. There were very few people. I think Alan Ladd Jr. was the only guy. Ford always says he thought it was going to work, but I mean nobody really thought it was going to work, and I sort of get it. It must have looked like hell before it really got put together and streamlined. And even I talked about this before. A couple of years ago, I went to a screening in Westwood that had like a print from the UK from like 78 or 79. And it was not the special edition. It was the original as it was back in 77. And I could see the cracks. Like I could see the paint drying, for the first time to see it on the big screen and see the wires coming out of 3PO's neck in that one scene. And, I kind of understood for the first time adults back then telling us, like, why are you seeing it again? It's not that good. I mean, I love it. Nothing is diminished with my love for that original film. But you see it with different eyes, and you go, oh, yeah, I guess I kind of see where some of the dialogue was goofy or, why would it have worked? I just don't know with what process along this black hole thing anybody at the studio thought, we are going to sell so many lunchboxes. I can't even tell you how sexy.
So many Maximilian Schell lunch. Actually, I had a black hole lunch.
You know what I mean? Like,
well, it's got a great poster. It's got a great poster.
It has logo. It has a great logo. It has two extremely merchandisable characters in it in the, Vincent and Old Bob category, and I guess Maximilian as well.
Right. It's got people in overalls.
And I think some people really, when they look at the film that are outside being a child, they look at it and there's some contempt in it, and that you have these very marketable characters and you have some very dark moments, and it really does tonally shift. Like, I mean, I love it, but I'm not immune to it. I can see.
No, I just think that
it's weird about it.
It's well put together. It's competently acted. It looks great. Like you say, the logo and some of the characters, the set design and so on. It just, the lead character, they're all wearing like overalls. They're all wearing like jumpsuits. There's nothing distinctive about it that you came out of it going, that's a world. I mean, like I say what you want about Flash Gordon, but it's mental. Like it doesn't look like anything else. And you can't tell. The only thing you kind of walk away
with the black hole is you walk away thinking about the Cygnus. The Cygnus is an amazing ship, and the design of it is like a floating haunted house, and it's sitting on the side of a very beautiful field of stars and a very colorful black hole that represents menace, and it's on the threshold of menace. And I agree with you 100% with everything you're saying, but I think when I think back on it, and the reason why I revisit this with fondness is every time I watch it, I know it's not good, but I revisit my mindset of when I was a kid with the world of expectation and excitement and anticipation, that within at least the first third of it, there is something that could happen that could make this a great film. And then as it unravels, you realize, this really just kind of goes off the rails slowly but surely.
But you know what? To clarify what I said, because you're right. When you see it again, like in widescreen or like it's got a great, just the sound effect, like the sound of it, you do see the money up on the screen. You do get a sense these were huge sets and they were taking this very seriously. And it was like a 20,000 Leagues kind of thing. They just upped the budget, put it in space. It's got moments of like a Bond film to me, like some of those set pieces where like, you got, the bad guy's going to tell you the plan, and you're there, and like we're gonna, he's our host, but I don't trust him, sort of thing. There's interesting stuff there. The money's on the string. You just felt like they never got the right people to sort of guide it to really bring it to that next, click it up a notch or sort of thing. I mean, like, I know I keep going back to this, but I can't think of anything to sort of compare it to because it's a one-off to me. But Flash Gordon had a sense of fun about it. It's insane, but it's like it goes. It's fun to look at, and the
palette is much more colorful, and I think one of the reasons why that's failed. One of the reasons why this failed, I think, and they even when they were trying to remake it and they were writing the script got kicked back at least the first time or two because it went into darker territory than Disney wanted it to.
Mm-hmm. In fact, that's one of the official reasons they just stopped. Is it's too dark for Disney,
and that's present. That's present day. So
I would like to read that script.
I'd be curious to read that. Yeah,
the guy who wrote, I think Doctor Strange wrote a version that sort of got kicked back. But you look back at the 1979 version, and it is dark. You compare it to it's sort of apples and oranges in terms of if you had a double feature with Flash Gordon, they just wouldn't fit.
Right.
No, you'd have to do a double feature.
It also didn't fit with Lady and the Tramp.
No.
There were a bunch of kids crying at the end of it, but you
want to hear a freaky double feature? If I'm not mistaken, this was a drive-in double feature: The Muppet Movie and Watership Down.
Oh.
Good God! No, I used to get mad when I saw Watership Down in a kids section of a movie, like a video store. Because it's horrible.
It's horrible. It's like, well, let's stay for the second feature, and then you guys will probably just go to sleep. Okay, Mom, let's see the next Watership Down, like rabbits getting ripped apart by each other. Like, oh, yeah.
In the first 5 seconds.
That'll get me to sleep.
The one that always killed me was my mom and dad let me sit in front of Magic Shadows, Elway Yost, but he played Animal Farm.
What?
And Animal Farm is not, yes, it's animated, but it's not for children.
For kids.
And it horrified me.
There's actually a movie.
Yeah.
There's actually a movie that the same team that did Watership Down did years later called The Plague Dogs. Does anybody remember that movie?
Yeah. Yeah, it's another one of, the same author's books. There's a play. Richard, my sister bought all those
Richard
books.
Angry?
No,
I'm just kidding.
He always wrote Richard Adams. Like Shardik and Watership Down and The Plague Dogs. Yeah, my sister had a box set of his books.
The Plague Dogs takes the same kind of thing, but with dogs and sort of adult animation and stuff. But yeah, I don't know who put that on the bill, but that was a tough.
Well, yeah. Well, Muppets and cute bunny rabbits. It's a grand
right. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
If you think about it, though, I mean, if you put Bad News Bears with the Muppets, it still doesn't quite fit, back in the...
No, that's true.
Quick tangent, around that time, the best double feature I ever went to was a double feature of Excalibur and Outland.
Ooh, that's a good one.
But those kind of work together.
Yeah, and that was phenomenal. Usually it's one or the other, but this one, both of them just obviously knock it out of the park. And I have especially amazing fond memories, and I'm very enamored of Outland. And I think I'm in sort of the minority with in terms of being a fan of Outland. A lot of people thought, it's Hyman in space. It's sort of an alien.
Well, to be honest with you, I kind of think of it the same way I do the Black Hole, where it's very beautiful to look at, and it's misunderstood, but it's well done. Outland is really.
Was that Peter
well
Hyams? Was that who did that?
Yeah, Peter Hyams directed. Yeah.
You know what? When I see that movie, I think you can see the influence of Alien, whereas you see Alien and you sort of get the influence of Star Wars, the whole lived-in environment. Mm-hmm. I always thought that Outland seemed, just the way they were dressed was like the people on the Nostromo, and just the
Outland is sort of like if the Nostromo made it to their destination and they never found an alien. That's what Outland is. Basically,
this would be their job.
I thought that was Saturn III.
Yeah. Saturn III. Well, that's a whole other ball of wax. Yeah. That's a whole other ball of wax.
Who was the guy? Who was the robot in
Hector.
3? What's he called?
Hector.
Victor.
Hector.
And Harvey Keitel. Harvey Keitel's voice getting dubbed throughout the entire.
Oh my gosh.
The entire film, which is amazing.
I've actually I've rewatched that just because I'm a huge fan of Jerry Anderson's UFO, and Ed Bishop has a very, very small voice cameo in that movie.
You know,
as he does it in You Only Live Twice.
You know, what's the cameo when you only live twice?
He is the guy talking to the astronauts who get captured.
Oh.
He's actually got an on-screen role in that just before Bond is killed. And
isn't it funny, though, how many of these things we're talking about? Okay, so Star Wars was 77. So Battlestar Galactica,
78.
I stand by that being pretty great. And it kind of fluffed, but there was another deeper story going on there, and of course I loved it, whatever. But so many of these things, they either missed the mark and went too goofy, like Buck Rogers, or too,
I see. I adore Buck Rogers for being goofy. It is the man from Uncle in Space.
It is. Yeah, no, I'm saying, I'm just
love
saying that
Buck
nothing
Rogers.
ever really...
And it knows it's goofy.
It really wasn't until, Raiders of the Lost Ark, when that hit, that you had something slightly different, but in the same family as Star Wars, that really worked, that really... Everything else kind of tried really hard and wasn't sure if they wanted to... Star Trek, the motion picture, didn't know what it was supposed to be. I think that Flash Gordon was probably thought to be several different things, and I think there was a language barrier between the writer and...
I think the thing is that, it wasn't trying to imitate anything. It was just being its own thing.
Which was?
That's why Star Wars was a hit.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, like you're saying, Raiders.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I'm saying that to have that lightning to strike again. I mean, people tried and tried and tried to get something off the ground that would have been, a series of films, like a Star Wars series, and it never quite worked. They just could never quite get the formula down that made those first two movies so special.
I would like to point out Arabian Adventure again, which is this 1970s film starring Christopher Lee and Emma Samms and Peter Cushing that is really trying hard to be Star Wars, but with genies and flying carpets, and it does not work. But it is kind of like, I got to give you a gold star for trying to do Star Wars without spaceships. You know what I mean? Like it's and it was it was written by Brian Hayles, who also created the Ice Warriors for Doctor Who.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, nice.
Well, it's funny you bring up Saturn III. I revisit Saturn III every 2 to 3 years with the hopes that maybe
there'll be more nudity.
And I'm dashed. Well, probably the scariest thing of that is the sex scene between Kirk Douglas and Farrah Fawcett. But
78-year-old Kirk Douglas and.
Yes, it's not as hot as you would hope, but he is in good shape. But I return to that, like I return to The Black Hole and some of these other films that just don't quite cut it, thinking, well, there was something about it that appealed to me that got me in the seat in the first place, whether it was the poster art or the concept, and then it either eventually or very quickly goes off the rails and fails miserably or spectacularly.
Right.
And, Outland sort of is in its own sort of category of it's a one-off, and it's very much inspired by Alien. But these other films, like you were talking about how you have these sort of visionary artists and directors putting certain projects together, and then you have these journeymen sort of longtime industry pros where they say, all right, we're going to do a knockoff of this. We need the best people and the most capable people possible. They show up, they're
got to make a
punctual
space film.
Yeah, but they punch in and they punch out at their appointed.
But see, I go even further with it. I go to and again, this is not to denigrate any of these titles that I'm talking about. It just, every one of these things has sort of started to hit, or we'd see previews for, we could not wait to get to. Now, Excalibur, I kind of put in its own category because it's a beautiful film, and there is fantasy in it, but it was this established story or whatever, and it was like a kind of a one-off that is kind of perfect, and it's got Helen Mirren naked in it as well. But also something like Clash of the Titans, like it wasn't. I mean, I know people have a real affinity for that movie and love Clash of the Titans, but I saw it 2 or 3 times. I got the toys. It didn't move me the same way remotely that Star Wars did or Raiders did,
because it had a foot in the past, and it was sort of the last gasp of the prior visionary work of Ray Harryhausen, which is wonderful, but the film itself couldn't compete with the contemporary films that it was out with. You kind of look at like Logan's Run the same way. It's sort of the last gasp of this sort of dystopian Planet of the Apes, Omega Man style movies that were out. Mm-hmm. But then the whole game, radically changes with Star Wars, and it's a dinosaur immediately 1 year after it came out.
Yeah.
And
and you've got Clash of the Titans is just there's some vital thing that was missing in each one of these things that either went too far this way or too far that way, or there's a darkness too. There's a darkness that kind of is a through line to a lot of these things that they were trying to turn kids onto. I think the motion picture, I think Black Hole, I think Clash of the Titans is it's heroic and there's an adventure there, but it's kind of pedestrian. It's just kind of, it's not really getting me excited, whatever. Dark Crystal is horrifying.
Terrifying.
Some people seem to have a real love for that.
It's in the title. It's dark.
Oh my God! I had nightmares.
And of course,
nightmares about that
back
movie.
later this year. Coming back later this year.
I know it's coming back. This Netflix thing. I have no desire to go anywhere near it. It did nothing for me. But there's a weird kind of darkness that then I think starts to get lifted once you get to Jedi and a lot of stuff that sort of came after it. That just it was no holds barred kind of silliness. But it's just interesting to me how many of these things tried to be a franchise or were hoping to be something huge, and just we're missing some vital ingredients or cast members or the balance of humor and adventure or whatever that didn't quite get there.
Well, we could all be thankful then for Nicholas Meyer, if you think about it, because Star Trek, the motion picture, should have put a nail in the coffin for that franchise. We could talk about tremendous virtues for that film, and I love it for a lot of different reasons. But like the Black Hole, I remember sitting there excited to see Star Trek on the big screen, and just my mouth was gaping open saying, what the hell is going on? Where is this movie going? There's nothing happening. Lots of long, cool effect shots and great music, and that's about it. I don't know what's going on.
I don't remember coming out of that being wiped out, like as a kid going, oh my God, that was, I don't remember quite, I just remember it being boring. And I know my older brother took me, and he was the Star Trek fanatic in the house. And that I got to go see this. I mean, I remember the excitement building up for it, and the ads in magazines and the commercials and the trailer, and like, this is really happening. We're really going to get a new thing with this older show that was around before I was born, or whatever. So there was a real excitement to kind of be there, that it was even happening. But you're right. If not for Wrath of Khan and what he did to turn that ship around, so to speak, and really, the further you get from it, the more remarkable that movie is, that he was able to come in and do this and save Star Trek as we know it. Really, everything that came afterwards is because of that movie working.
And a quick aside about that is that it's kind of funny because he wasn't even a fan of the show. He didn't, he didn't know Star Trek very well, but he loved nautical adventure and he loved Horatio Hornblower. Right. And when they put it in his hands, he's like, "Well, I'll make it a nautical adventure in space." But somehow, and I think Harve Bennett, who produced it, ironically, he's the one who sort of should get a lot more credit of bringing the fun and the levity and the sort of family values of Star Trek and friendship to that film that Roddenberry seemed to have forgotten. And I think, talking about movies that were sort of one step behind what was happening in cinema and the zeitgeist at the time, Star Trek: The Motion Picture was trying to be 2001: A Space Odyssey. Yeah. It wasn't trying to be Star Wars. And so it came out at a time where everyone wanted Star Wars, not 2001. And so if you liken Wrath of Khan to Star Wars in comparison to 2001, that's kind of the movie we had to wait for.
I've never read this anywhere, but I'd be willing to bet. I'll bet Roddenberry sort of looked down his nose at Star Wars. I'll bet he looked at Star Wars as something that was, he did.
For
he
kids.
really was a believer in that the future was going to be no money and, people not shooting each other and everyone's going to be living in peace and harmony and, all this stuff.
He really changed over the years too, right? Like, he wasn't the same guy, I think, that created the original Star Trek when it came to do the movie. I think he had changed some philosophy there a little bit, and
I think he got much more proprietary about it too.
Yes.
Where it was he understood the value he had to it and with the fans, and that if he wanted to put the word out that they were trying to screw him or it was going to be awful or whatever, which is what he did with Star Trek 2. He leaked the thing about Spock because he wasn't happy with the way they were doing things or something, and so he's the one that kind of leaked it, it turns out. So yeah, I think he got kind of big for his britches, but I'd imagine he'd look at something like Star Wars and have thought he probably would have liked Black Hole more, I would think, because it was more science-y based.
Well, it had more of that. I always thought that Star Trek, the motion picture, was just terribly overthought. Like they really wanted to make this big, heady impression, and they didn't really give it the thought that also this has to be entertaining.
Yes,
Well,
you're right.
They finally captured that in Star Trek V. When the Enterprise meets God.
Right. But isn't that ironic? So here you've got all the people like Roddenberry and all these people some people were involved with the old show, whatever, doing the motion picture, getting it wrong, thinking it was going to be something else, when really a guy comes along that barely knew the show but knew how to tell a story and was able to make something like Star Trek 2, which is really what that first film should have been. It captured the spirit of what the show was and the journey we'd gone on with these characters and stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, as a kid, I had not seen Space Seed, and it didn't matter.
Right.
No, exactly. I didn't know until I read it in the newspaper that it was to do with an old episode.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it.
Although I do remember, even though I did see Space Seed, I didn't make the connection with Ricardo Montalban, and I remember hearing that they cast Ricardo Montalban as the bad guy, and I remember thinking, why the hell is Mr. Rourke in this movie? This is going to just be terrible. And of course, we
know one Canadian kid that was excited about Wrath of Khan because Mr. Rourke was in it.
Who was that?
That's for certain. That's for certain.
Although he was
probably
like an idiot.
Like a week before it came out, you had your Fantasy Island marker, pen, and poster set, and marker set waiting to get a ticket for Wrath of Khan. I did not see
Wrath of Khan in the theater. And here's why. I had dragged my dad to the motion picture. And
big mistake.
I remember the drive home. It was Boxing Day. I remember the drive home was completely silent. And it was a long drive home. And I remember going, oh, man. And like just friends of mine went to see it on their own and were like, oh, man, we were bored. We just went and played like cards in the lobby and stuff. And it was just like,
that's bad.
I really screwed that up. So Wrath of Khan was one of the first few movies I ever rented.
That's a great rental.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
you know what? That was 83 was like a big rental year because that was on rental. The Thing was on rental. Blade Runner was on rental.
And in fact, I think they played it in my grade 7 classroom. For the last couple of days, your teacher just stops caring.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
And
totally.
She brought in that, and she brought in On the Right Track, starring Gary Coleman. Guess which one I like best?
Now that's a double bill.
Yeah, and you added Watership Down to that one.
Yeah.
Went home crying.
Right.
Watership Down
traumatized all the kids for summer.
Yeah.
Freak them out with their pet rabbits. Well, I hope that somebody learned something out there that listens to this.
This is a heck of a show.
Extravaganza.
What we've done here.
That was a heck of an epic.
Yeah. It's longer than the Black Hole itself, I believe.
Yeah,
by the way, I had a quick correction to myself. Earlier, I said Salvation One, and I meant Salvage One.
Oh,
I knew what you meant, and I don't think Brian or I had the heart to jump in and be that guy.
It came out of my mouth as Salvation One. And like, what is that guy talking
Salvage
about?
One.
I kind of got what you were saying. Yeah.
I've got the 2 poster magazines that came out.
Well, we didn't want to be those guys. You just saved yourself a pithy email.
Exactly. I knew that was going to come to haunt me if they think if they think that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's better that we clear it up now before
Mayberry in space for anyone who's interested in
right.
Nobody is.
So, David,
the remake is also too dark.
David, thank you so much for coming on and guesting. I'm glad we finally got to this.
Yeah, thank you for having
so
me.
long. Yeah. And, let us know what you think. And, we'll do this again soon, I hope.
Absolutely. But this has been a long-anticipated episode and actually one of our most requested. So I'm glad we have this behind us. In, through, and beyond.
I hope we didn't leave anything out.
Can I throw in a quick plug for the blog?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just for social media and that kind of stuff like that, if anyone is remotely interested, I have a blog called It Came From. So you just go to itcamefromblog.com and you can get it on Instagram at It Came From Blog and Facebook at It Came From Blog. And you can find me on Twitter at Tiki Ambassador. Don't ask why.
We won't. And you post a lot of really interesting things on It Came From Blog. I've noticed a lot of it lately, and it's definitely up the alley of anyone who listens to Pod Stallions.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Know the name of my show. But, it's...
Plod Stallions. I like that.
Plod Stallions, yeah. So, check it out, and thanks again, David. This was awesome.
Thank you. Hopefully another time. We'll figure something out.
We'll have to pick another obsession.
Yes.
What else do you have?
I'm sure we can come up with something.
I'm thinking of maybe a couple hours on Salvage One. What do you guys think?
They would be a lot of you talking.
Our 2-part Dark Crystal episode.
All I know about it is Robbie the Robot was in it once.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, that's good. So you actually did watch it.
I watched the one with Robbie the Robot in it.
Yeah, that's probably the only one.
As long as you don't have any follow-up questions, I'm good.
There you go.
I just remember that there was, I think Starlog put out a poster magazine or a special magazine or something. That's how desperate we were.
We needed anything we could get.
Anything we could get, and Salvage One got its own poster magazine. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Thank God Star Wars came along when it did.
Oh yeah,
we would have been screwed. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.